I'm making an easy homemade apple pie, but don't tell anybody. It's the Cheaters Easy Pie. We're using real apples, but there's a shortcut. So here's my cheat. It's buying a pie crust from the grocery store. Usually I do Pillsbury, but this time I just was at Aldi, and that's what I'm going to use. So I'm going to start out by actually rolling it out because I'm going to use a 10-inch glass pie plate. So I put some flour on the counter. I'm going to put a little bit of flour on the rolling pin and roll it out. And here I'm going to do it at double speed and hopefully not get my arm in front of the camera too much. And I just want to get it large enough to fit the pan so I have a little bit of extra. Okay, so now I'm also going to take the pie plate and fit it over and just double check that it's going to work out in size and smooth it out a little bit more. I had a few tears in it, and now I'm going to roll it over the rolling pin, and that makes it much easier to put it over the pie plate. And you can do this even when you're making your own pie crust. So now you can see I have a tear in it, and it did pinch together really well, but if it's a little too dry, you could put some water on your fingers and pinch it together and it should stick really well. So now I'm just pressing it into the sides of the pie dish, and you see I have nice overhang. And next we're going to work on the filling. So for this I need 6 cups of apples, and I'm using Granny Smith, the green, and I peeled them and cored them, and now I'm slicing them into small slices, and 6 cups. So I want to say it was about 6, 7, or 8 apples, about that many. And after they're all sliced, I'm going to put them into the large bowl you see at the right. So now we have our large bowl, and I'm putting in 3/4 of a cup of sugar and 2 tablespoons of flour and a teaspoon of cinnamon. I love cinnamon in this. 1/8 of a teaspoon of nutmeg and 1/4 teaspoon of salt. All of that was in there. Now I'm actually going to toss it together and incorporate those ingredients before I put the last ingredient in here. And the last ingredient is 1 tablespoon of lemon juice. And give it a toss. I like to make sure that everything is evenly distributed, especially the cinnamon and the sugar. Then it's ready to pour into the pie crust. And this was hard to do in front of the camera. It's a lot easier to do if I'm not filming. And after I get it all in there, I add little bits of cinnamon and sugar and nutmeg, still in the spoon, yeah. Still stuck in the bowl, and I want to scrape all that goodness out and get that into the pie. And after that, you see how the apples are kind of sticking up? You want to just smooth that out with the spoon and get it as level as possible. So now I have the second, the top layer, and I'm going to roll that out a little bit too. I don't need to do it too much, but again, being a 10-inch pie plate, I just wanted to get it rolled out a little bit more, not as much as the bottom crust needed to be. And then I'm going to lift that up, and this time I didn't put it on the roller, but you could. Now it's a little bit long, so what I started to do is first get a pair of scissors and I'm going to put this on fast speed at this point. So I keep a pair of kitchen shears available and just cutting it so the overhang was maybe a ½ inch, top and bottom. So now this will be sped up about 2 times the speed. And when I'm done with this, I'm going to start not crimping it, but folding the top crust under the lower. And then if it's not sticking well, you can use some water on your fingers to dampen one of them it just helps it adhere better. Then after that's all done, I'm going around and crimping the edges using my thumb and left index finger on my left hand and my right index finger on my right hand. Then after that's all done, I'm using a small sharp knife to put first about 6 slits around the center and then more larger slits beyond that, kind of in a flower shape. Then I have one more thing I want to do, and I'm doing it in probably 2.5 times the speed. I'm taking the scraps and I'm going to roll them out, and I have a tiny little cookie cutter that's in the shape of an apple. If you have a shape of a leaf or something like that in a small cookie cutter shape, those are fun too. So I'm going to cut out the apple, several of them, and using a pastry brush, I'm going to brush some water on one side of the apple to make them adhere to the top of the crust. I used to actually cut out the top of the crust with it. It was goofy. I just like the little slits for the venting. Now, after all these little apple shapes are on there, here I'm just brushing the top of the pie with apple, but you can do an egg wash. And an egg wash would be 1 egg that you beat lightly with a fork and then add about a tablespoon of water. And then in retrospect, I wish I had done that, but I just use water and water is fine. And then after brushing on either the water or brushing on the egg wash, take some sugar and sprinkle it all over the top. Next, we're going to bake it in a 425-degree oven for 40 to 45 minutes. But after 20 minutes, what I do, I set a second timer and I put one of these pie shield, crust shield things because it keeps the crust from getting overly done. And now we're ready to make the cheesecake part. We're going to start by mixing the 3 8-ounce packages of the regular cream cheese that's now been softened. Sometimes my kitchen is a little bit cold, so it's